us through the kind of what's laid before Judge Merchan here. He issued a gag order. It seemed fairly finely tailored. It was using language that had already gone through appellate review in other jurisdictions to try to balance these equities of protecting people involved in the case while also allowing the First Amendment rights of a man who's running for president. And then immediately, Donald Trump has gone after the judge's daughter, naming her in person. So what happens now?
Well, thank you for having me on, Chris. Nothing about this is normal. Everything about this is abnormal because there is an abnormal defendant, Donald Trump. So, Chris, I presided over hundreds of hearings and trials involving criminal defendants who did not want to be in court. They weren't happy, but they never engaged in this kind of behavior. So the issue becomes the gag order. And the levels, you started with a warning, didn't work, fines don't work, so now the gag order. In this instance, my view is that Donald Trump has now tiptoed up to the line. He hasn't crossed over the line of violating the gag order because the judge did not include himself or his own family members. So I do not understand why judges are so reluctant to include themselves in gag orders in dealing with this abnormal defendant. And it isn't because, well, judges, their feelings will get hurt. That's not what this is about. This is about protecting people from harm, from physical harm, from violence, from intimidation. So if I were Judge Merchan, on Monday morning, I would have everyone back in court, and I would expand the gag order based upon it. We don't need 30 days for each side to brief it, which is what Trump's attorneys want to do. It's quite clear what he has done, and he needs to expand it. No one, judges, family members, witnesses, jurors, staff members, should ever be intimidated in court proceedings. That's not how our courts run, and enough is enough. So I am very hopeful that Judge Merchan will expand this gag order to include himself and his family members.
So I just want to put a fine point on this because Judge Luttig, an august ex-federal judge and a conservative who is also a sort of big defender of American democracy against its enemies, says never in American history has any person, let alone a president of the United States, leveled such threatening attacks against the federal and state courts and federal and state judicial officers of the kind the former president has leveled continually now for years. Suffice to say, never in history has any person leveled such attacks and been met with such passivity, acquiescence, submissiveness by the nation. And I want to go back to what you just said because I want to keep drawing a bright line around this. Like, judges have to deal with all kinds of people in all kinds of situations of mental distress, substance use disorder, manic episodes, extremely poor impulse control. I mean, across the board. And I can't find anyone that I know that's been a judge who could point to a precedent of having a defendant do this at the judge's family member.
I believe it's never happened. And at the same time, I'm not shocked, I'm not surprised, because he's gone after family members before. But the key is this. It's what his words do. So the reason the gag orders are in place is because he knows that he's inciting other people to do his dirty work. And that's what cowards do. That's what bullies do. So this is a clear and present danger that his words are posing to the court. And the job of a trial judge is to manage the court, to ensure that every side, both sides, are treated fairly, get a fair hearing, and that everyone involved in the process is protected. And here, that protection is needed, including the judge himself. So it is my hope that the judge will expand the gag order, and should Donald Trump cross that line, once that gag order is in place, then it's a no-brainer after that. Then he's thumbing his nose at the court. He goes to jail. He goes to jail. He cools his heels and understands that the judge means business. You obey constitutional and lawful orders in a court.
Yeah, just to stress what you just said, I mean, this is not a hypothetical. We know in the case of the clerk in the civil case, Judge Corrin's clerk, who was the target of simmer vitriol, she had to move. She had to get a security detail. She got tons of threatening and harassing messages. She had physical fear for her safety and threats. I thought of it today like the scene in the mob movie where the prosecutor goes to pick her kid up in the playground. There's some guy there, grabbing the kickball from the kid and saying, "Cute kid." It's like everyone understands what's happening there. Everyone understands what's happening here. He's using a threat. This is mob intimidation of the judicial system by directing threats and harassment at the judge's daughter. I don't think there's any question about that in my mind. Is there in yours?
Well, we clearly know that that is his intention, because if it were not, he would have early on said to his followers, look, I'm calling out names, but you are never to threaten or commit violence against any of these people. He has never said that.
Right.
Never.
Yeah.
Because he wants just the opposite.
Yeah. That's a great point. Judge Ladoris Cordell, whose wisdom I always learn from. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.